so that's for you to know too. I'm Keaton Allen. I am the director of our degree programs here at Thunderbird and like to welcome everybody. This is our final executive lecture series of the summer. Some of you have maybe come to all of them, and for others, this is the first week of school for many of our programs, and so there's probably some new people here. In fact, I want to see who's new here. We've got different dots on your name tag. I've called them dork dots. I don't know if you've given them a name yet, but everyone with a blue dot is an alum. Will you raise your hand? All right, so what do we got? We've got some here. Look around. If you want to meet some alumni, this is a good time to do it. Also, okay, current students, yellow. Raise your hand if you got a yellow dot. Okay, so is this the first week of school for everyone then? How is it? Are there any cohorts here with enough people that you want to do a cheer for us? Not even the Broncos? What was that? I didn't even understand that. Is that a new cheer? All right, Is it going to happen or no? No? Okay, maybe later. Red. Has anyone got red on? These are admitted students or prospective students. So these people who are looking at Thunderbird, maybe been accepted but haven't started yet. So we have a few. If you are a student or an alum, go talk to them afterwards and make sure they come, okay? And then is there anyone with green? So green is like a guest of someone, maybe a guest of the community. Welcome to Thunderbird. And then you're going to speak up at the end. I have the privilege of welcoming one of our superior professors here. Yeah? This is Professor Rich Ettenson, and he teaches global marketing, and he teaches global brand management. He's one of our favorite professors here at Thunderbird, and so we're so excited to bring him in for this final lecture and let him wow us. One thing that's great about him is that not only is he an academic, but he's also a practitioner. He's started companies, he's worked in companies, so he brings a lot of experience from the real world and things that are very applicable that we could use. And he's also a basketball player. And that's it. I'd like to welcome Rich.
Thanks, Keith, for that kind introduction, and welcome everyone. We've got a large group here. That's nice to see, and it's also nice to see all the different groups here, whether they be alumni, admitted students, continuing students, etc. And I think what brings everyone together in the Thunderbird community, of course, is the notion of the global emphasis, and that's what we're going to focus on tonight. We're going to be looking at what I like to say is how do we take any international, overseas, global venture, and how do we boost the chances of what we might call business success? Now, who here is interested in the nonprofit space? Just to show of hands. Yeah, we got a large contingent here. And I like to say it's not necessarily companies and profit, but even if you take your overseas initiative as a nonprofit abroad, the ideas, frameworks we're going to talk about tonight are very applicable, and so they go across really all organizations. So what I want to do is, again, I'm making some opening remarks. I want to sort of set the business context here. What draws everyone together, sort of the red thread among everyone, is the notion of being global. That's what Thunderbird's about. So I have a rather ambitious agenda. Now, although we are going to go through a range of topics, we're going to start broad and really narrow it down and then talk about ultimately a research study that was just published. I want to make sure if you have any questions, as Keaton said, that are more than one word, and I hope it's more than one word, feel free to just raise your hand and stop me and say, hey, Rich, I got a question. And we can engage in a little dialogue. It's not unmanageable in a group of this size, and I do want to make sure I'm not the only one speaking. So we're going to start broad. We're going to talk about business strategy, and what I like to say is that sets the business context for us, because even if you're a nonprofit, a for-profit, as you go abroad, you've got to start delivering on what your company, what your organization is about from a strategy perspective. Then we're going to talk about the imperative for growth, and in particular, global growth. Why are companies going abroad? Why do they seek overseas market? It complicates their life. It's very challenging, and yet there's a need, and many companies are motivated to do that. Then we're going to talk about informing our business decisions. And what I mean by that is we want to make sure that we have the right information so we increase our chances of success and minimize the chances that we might have a crash and burn. Then we're going to talk about the global, what I call the conventional wisdom in the global arena. In other words, what's the traditional way that practicing managers try to go out and get business, grow their business in overseas markets? And then we'll go to a little bit of a quiz talking about the failure rate of new products, new product introductions, new initiatives. And I'm going to actually surprise you, I think, with how successful some companies are in their new product initiatives. And then I'm going to introduce what I like to call, it's really the meat of the presentation, new thinking and a new tool that will help global managers and global companies increase the likelihood that they will succeed in the global arena. Okay? So again, feel free to ask questions, stop me at any point. We'll manage the time and make sure we get a good dynamic. So, let's go ahead and get you started already. I like to have participation. So, whether the company you're currently working for, the company that you had previously worked for, or the company that you want to work for when you get your ticket punched. Question becomes, what's going to be your mission? And I don't care whether you're a finance major, whether you're into marketing, HR, ops, really doesn't matter what functional role. You're all going to share something in common. So somebody help me out. What's your mission at your current job or your previous job or your future job? What's going to be your mission? Yes, in the back. Push diplomacy. I like that. That's good. But that's kind of narrow. And what I mean by that is if you talk to folks at IBM or you talk to folks at McDonald's, I don't think pushing diplomacy is going to be high on their agenda, but you share something in common with them. Somebody else. I like that. And your name is? Aaron. Aaron, thank you. On this side, go ahead. And I'll repeat the answers so make sure everyone hears what's going on. To change the world. I like that. You've got to get a bit broader ambition and be a little more, how should I say, ambitious in your goals there. That's a little small for me, but I like that. Well done. And the world changer here is, your name? Jared. Jared, okay. Someone else, one more. Yes?
Ideally, generate capital to fuel new endeavors in media and to be able to take advantage of new markets to escape protectionism and things of that nature.
Okay, that's a nice, and your name is?
My name is Sandeep.
Lee?
Sandeep.
Salib. Okay, so if we take Aaron, and is it Jared? Jared. And Salib's comments here, we sort of cross the whole gamut, whether it be nonprofit, change the world in a range of ways, or more traditional business focus. I like the idea, and again, what we're hearing here is pretty consistent. Everyone here, regardless of industry, is going to share something in common, and that's what we're going to all be doing. Our organization is going to have a business strategy, and it's our goal, whether it's changing the world, increasing cash flow in a reliable way, or increasing diplomacy and connections among governments, people, etc. All of us have to deliver on that business strategy. So how do you make it happen? What's that? Make a plan is one of the comments. Your name? Amira. Well done. We got to make a plan. And our plan is to do what? Well, change the world, increase diplomacy, or generate cash flow. I like to say, regardless of what your interests might be, we all share something in common. And what we share in common is everyone in this room has to create value. And you're going to be creating value in a very dynamic, very fierce, very competitive business environment, both domestically and globally. Make sense? So we're all value creators. Excellent. Oh, then the organization has to grow in a reliable and a sustainable way. So, Sahib, yes? Sadeep. I'm not good with... Sonny. Sonny. That was my dad's name. That's good. Sonny is, so the idea of reliable, sustainable cash flows, that's pretty consistent. Aaron, right? Yeah, Aaron's comment about diplomacy means I've got to do something in a way where I just don't create that good connection today, but I got to make sure it's sustainable into the future. So we need to grow in a reliable and a sustainable way. So what we're going to highlight in tonight's event, some recent global research, which I've been fortunate to be a part of, that documents that the key to overseas success is actually closer to home than we might think. So, if we had to put together what we saw in this previous slide, two key words, it would be we're all here because we want to be global, and we also are here because we want to grow our organizations. Make sense? So you're going to see this theme of global growth continuing as we go through the presentation. So how do companies achieve global growth? Well, there it is. Your company, or in your case, Aaron, and even Jerry, the notion of company or organization, I mean the same thing. Every one of your organizations is going to have a business strategy. Where's the alumni in the room? Show of hands. Hey, alumni, did you ever take a course in business strategy? Your name, sir, is? Mike. What's business strategy? And I know who your professor was, so we can change your grade if you don't get it right. What's business strategy?
Is the high-level business strategy. Is the high-level plan to...
Good, I like that. Well done. Your grade stays the same. It's an A+. All right, so it's the high-level sort of plan to help me achieve my goals. So once I identify what my goals might be, how am I going to get there? Anyone else? Another alum? You want to add something? Go ahead. There we go. Yeah, you took my course, so that's not fair, Justin.
I think business strategy is how and when to say no.
How to say yes and when to say no. Well done. I'm glad you paid good attention there.
Even though the mic might not be making it loud.
Okay, so Justin's comment was when to say yes and knowing when to say no, because there's lots of opportunities out there, and we have to show a bit of discipline, a bit of rigor, and be a bit strong sometimes and say, nah, and you're going to see this come up in just a moment in a Dilbert cartoon, because Dilbert, don't go to Thunderbird, just read Dilbert. You'll know everything you want to know about business. How's that, Keaton? Did I do a good job? Not good, not good. Okay. I like to say, and if anyone who's taken my courses, I am the simplest guy in the room, because simple frameworks get remembered, simple frameworks get used, and simple frameworks are indeed applicable. So when we talk about business strategy, I think you're right, Mike. Mike, right? Mike's right, but to me, I like to sum it up in an even simpler way. What should we do? How simple is that? 4 words. In other words, consistent with Justin's point, what do we do, meaning what do we say yes to, and how do we then make sure we know when to say no? Then we got to go out and do something. We have to go execute. So we have products, services, and activities. How do we execute? And this is then going to be based on, this is where the theme of tonight is. What is my business model? What's my competitive advantage, or maybe a competitive disadvantage, as I go through and make sure, like everyone in the room, we have to do what? Everybody in unison. Everyone is here to do what? Create value. That's exactly right. And we're all going to do it in our own unique ways. Well done. So then we're going to create a customer or stakeholder experience. So Aaron, you're right. When I say stakeholders, governments are stakeholders. So it's not just somebody who's engaging in a financial transaction with us, but we want to make sure we engage everyone that has, or that I might be able to have an impact on. And then if I create value, which we all do, we then do what? Which will make Sonny very happy, because he sounds like a finance guy. Which is what? Capture value, make money. That's exactly right. Reliable, robust revenue streams, as I like to say. What impact do we have? And that's where it comes down to marketplace, perceptions, brand, etc. Now, I know I'm talking about global expansion, but if you don't know why you're expanding globally or what makes us special as an organization, you're just going to, I don't know, be out there and trying to make sure, hopefully, that something sticks. And I want to give us a little more, like I say, discipline and rigor in our thinking so we can succeed. Yes? when I say stakeholder, it as broad as can be. So you bring in anyone that isn't engaged in a financial transaction, but they're concerned or want to make sure that they're getting something out of the deal. It's a mutually beneficial exchange. That's what I call stakeholder. Okay, so that would be communities, investors, you name it. Okay. So it's now decision time, and for those that have taken my course, I see a few friendly faces here. This is fundamentally your marketing strategy, and this is a core course that I teach, and it's also your brand strategy, another core course that I teach. But here's the key point. None of this is separate from or unrelated to, or better still, has to be aligned with the fundamental business strategy. Why do we exist, and what should we do? Now, if you look here, there's your company, your organization. I know some of you say, gosh, you know, I'm not involved in business strategy decisions. And for the most part, probably for the first 15 years of your career, unless you engage in a startup, you're not going to. Because this part here is the world of the senior business leader and strategist, setting the direction for the company. But what most of you are going to do, or have already done, you play a role in what I call the top half of this three-bubble framework, where you're involved in what I call management or customer-facing, stakeholder-facing execution. Make sense? All right, so I'm sort of setting things up, but keep in mind we're not ever far removed from business strategy. So don't think, oh, I got done with that course, that's great. Now I can go on to something important. That sets the foundation for everything. So, another question. Why do firms globalize? I told you it complicates their life. It's woefully, woefully challenging. It takes a lot of resources, a lot of wherewithal, yet we have so many companies that come to Thunderbird, students that come to Thunderbird, who all they want to do is be global, want to globalize. So tell me why. What's the rationale? Help me with a...
Opportunity.
Opportunity. Tell me a bit more. Unbundle that a little bit.
So you will have, if you stay in one place for too long, you know, the growth will be just kind of stabilized. And then if you have your vision to go out somewhere where it's never been exposed, then you probably get more opportunity to get your growth, get your profit, get your company to growth.
Okay. So it goes along with our notion of global growth. Help me with the name? Adrian, well done. Somebody else, why do firms globalize?
So many of the global companies are trying to keep the cost low and open new market opportunities.
Yes. So how do you keep costs low? By spending money to go abroad. And your name is?
Partha. Partha.
Partha?
Yeah, that's
okay, thank you. How do you, I mean, it sounds not intuitive. Meaning I'm going to spend more so I can actually save money. I don't get it. Talk to me.
Hey.
Yeah, so one
You're
is
right, by the way, but I want to hear.
One is economies of scale. At the same time, you know, you have opportunities where you can get the same kind of skill set at a lower cost. That adds up to your parent company while you're finalizing the books. You have a lower cost adding into your books.
Well done. If I had a long enough arm, I'd give you a fist bump there. Okay, so what we're going to do now is go through a range of reasons why companies globalize. And I think we're going to see some consistency. You got one more comment here? Go right ahead.
I'm thinking like from a market perspective, because in their current market, probably their product's life cycle is to the mature stage. So they kind of have to compete very fast, like furious, or with low price. So if they go to an emerging market, they can get better like outcome from it. Okay. And also from a production perspective, it's much cheaper. The labor cost and material cost is much cheaper in like developing countries.
Right. So there's good rational reasons why companies do this, even though it complicates their life. And your name is? Gloria. Gloria, thanks so much. Look, fundamentally, and it goes to Adrian's first point, I got to grow. And at some point, I got flat growth in my own domestic market. I got to start looking overseas. Imagine being a company in Switzerland. At some point, you scratch your head and say, and there are many good companies there that say, if I'm going to grow, Switzerland ain't going to be it. So in a way, I've got to automatically. U.S. is a little different story. Increased competition in domestic markets. So as we break down barriers to trade, et cetera, this creates a conundrum that, hey, I got more competition here. Maybe I can go in their backyard. Desire to decrease cost. Partha, yes? Partha's comment about economies of scale and scope. Gloria mentioned this as well, I think. Need to diversify risk. It's like having a portfolio in a range of different countries. But like I say, we all got to make sure if we're going to do it, we got to do it well. And we're going to see shortly that most companies do not do it as well as they could. And then the recognition of what I like to call global and mobile customers. Gosh, what does that mean? What industries would have inherently global and mobile customers? Telecom, absolutely. Financial services, absolutely, meaning our customers cross borders almost naturally. Keep going. Airlines. Unless you're Singapore Airline, right? Because actually, they're the quintessential one. Every flight of theirs is an international flight because there's no domestic airports except one. Okay? Southwest might be an example, but of the opposite, but they just decided to go internationally. Hotels would be another, the hospitality industry. Rent-a-cars. So you got to understand your customer base, and have I left out any reason, any other rationales you want to talk about, you want to mention? Go right ahead in the back. Okay. And your name is? Bryce. Bryce says, and it's a good comment, if I enter this market, I might get a first mover advantage. I'll have no further or no competition at present. But I promise you, Bryce, if you create a market and you make it an attractive place to be, you'll have more competition than you could have ever had nightmares about. Okay? So be careful about that first mover advantage because you will attract competitors. But that's a good point.
I have another one. Prestige.
Prestige. Tell me more. Your name is?
Amira.
Amira.
People want to be the first and own it. They want their recognition and their reputation.
Okay. So you're talking about from a customer base. But you know, companies want prestige as well. They want to be first to market, even if that means, well, they may not last long, number one. Certainly in luxury goods, that would be the case, et cetera. So here's the point. There is a range of reasons why companies want to go global, but they don't do so well sometimes. So, what is strategy? Well, Mike gave us some ideas, but why is it important? Justin said it, hit it right on the head. Why is that again, Justin? You want to repeat that? Sure. So we know, I'll repeat it for you. Go ahead. Go on.
Organizations have to learn how and when to say no because
That's it.
Everybody wants to be, all things to all people, but then you end up being, nothing to everyone.
Okay, that's good. So we've got to have that level of discipline. So like I said, if you want to know about global strategy, okay, hold on just a moment. We're doing a little closed caption too, which is excellent, but we got to make sure is that better? Yeah. Okay, excellent. Now we're closed captioning with panache. If you want to talk about what is strategy, sorry Keaton, but all you got to do is read Dilbert every day and you can go to the beach if we had beaches here, et cetera, and the rest would be good. So let's think about what Justin said. The importance of strategies. All companies need a strategy so employees will know what not to do. Not what to do, what not to do. Huh. So here he is. Companies with no strategy, the phone rings, and what is the employee saying? Uh-oh, what should I do? Companies with a strategy? Sorry, we don't do that. All right? And I know it's humorous, but I promise you won't forget it. And this is what we like to talk about, making choices that are informed, that are smart, and that play to our strengths. So far, so good? All right. It's decision time, because you know why you're going to be hired, Aaron, by whoever wants to make government connections or good global connections or change the world or good financial flows. You know what you're going to be paid to do, everyone in this room? To do what? Make decisions. That's it, right. And we're going to make some good ones. We may flub a few. That's okay. But we've got to make sure that we increase the chances that we're making really smart decisions that are quote-unquote informed. So it's decision time, as I like to say. What are the boundaries by which your company should not venture? And what I mean by that is there's your company. You got lots of keys or a lot of keyholes you can put that key into. You can't do everything. So you got to pick and choose. There you are. What are you going to do? So what are the boundaries by which your company, think about it, previous company you work for, should not venture? And when I say boundaries, I'm just not talking geographic boundaries. Go ahead, Partha.
So I'm probably not go on the boundary part. However, I can say that uncontested markets where you can explore and get become a player there, where there is no first mover advantage or nothing like that exists, but you still become a big player.
That was Bryce's comment, meaning it seems like it's a green field or an open playing field. Again, you're going to get lots of competition real quick, but yep, that might be one reason why, and that's a boundary. Keep going. What other boundaries would there be? Sonny.
Throwing your investors into a situation or
Okay.
if there is, the company's going to change their identity in order to do something.
Excellent. I really like that. In fact, we're going to talk about corporate compliance in just a bit as being how flexible do we want to be if the sort of rules of the road in country X, country Y are a little bit different from what it might be in the home market. So we'll get to that. So certainly geographic boundaries there are. What about industry boundaries? Can you think of an example of something where a company really stretched just a bit and went into another opportunity, to Adrian's point, but maybe they should have or maybe they shouldn't have?
In terms of scientific or engineering background, like
Talk
if
about it.
innovation,
Yeah.
if you are not being innovative or you are compromising just for the cost or for your investors, the quality, in long term, there are a lot of companies, for example, Dell, the one time ruled everything, or IBM, and now they are nowhere in the market.
Well, they've had their ups and downs.
Yeah.
How old is IBM, do you know?
And I'm not talking about IBM, I'm talking about the Lenovo, let's put that way, their laptop product, whatever, now it's began. Because the quality
Actually,
was.
IBM is over 100 years old.
Yes.
So there's some lessons in longevity there, but they did span some industry boundaries. Sometimes they were successful, sometimes they weren't, and it almost put the company out of business. I'll give you one other example. Take Apple. Anybody have a product here from Apple? Whew. The hands go flying. Yeah, they're sitting on more cash in like 58 countries around the world. That's good for them, I guess. By the way, put up your hands again. Who here has a product from Apple? Who here willingly overpaid for that product? Every single one of you. That's what I call really, really good business. And well, what's that? Well, whoever spent it for you willingly, oh, you must be worth a lot, my dear. That's all I can say. You are worth it. But here, take Apple. You think about great technology products, but I heard Tim Cook, not personally, but I heard him quoted recently that they, in the next 5 years, may extend the boundaries of what they do because the most mobile device of all is the automobile. Isn't that interesting? So will that be, who says that's going to be a winner for Apple if they just start making cars? Look around the room. Maybe 10% raise their hand. Who here says, I'm not sure? Who here says that is not going to be a winning proposition for them? Okay, who's right? Well, nobody yet. That's exactly right. But some companies place bets that they can do it, others will not, and we're going to talk about what do we need to do to make sure we're extending into the right markets, et cetera, and we'll talk about that in a moment. So, for those that are T-Bird alum, and if you're not already, you will know what Pesty Analysis is. Talk to me. Somebody, where's an alum who wants to tell me what Pesty is? You don't remember. I'm going to change her grade for sure. Come on. What's Pesty Analysis? There's not a class, or certainly a marketing class, that you won't take that won't talk about a Pesty Analysis. Again, a simple framework. Help me with a name.
Is this one which was about like political? Like,
Yes, it's exactly right. And your name is?
Nancy.
Nancy?
Yeah, just like Nancy Drew.
Nancy, okay, excellent. There it is. We're going to talk about political, technological, economic, social, environmental. So we like calling them pests. What is a pest? Something that annoys you, something that complicates your life, something that is always not fun. And in the same sense, if we decide to go overseas go into another different market. Gosh, what we end up doing is complicating our life because we've got to deal with these external trends of Pesty all the time trying to find global growth. You see the conundrum for companies? It's not easy. It's easy to talk about, a little bit more challenging to do. So what I want to do, because I like the comment about innovation over here, bear with me while I flip through this video of a colleague of mine. I'm going to go right to 20 seconds. This is Rob Wolcott. It's called The Innovation Paradox. It's 3 minutes long, but I'm going to play just a very short clip. And what I want you to do, you can look it up on YouTube. Rob's a good guy. He's a colleague. He's a friend. But he puts it very nicely what all your tasks are going to be. Why innovate? Good question.
The ship, these are the people out surfing the high seas looking for gold, but they didn't know people in the fortress.
Like I told you, 20 seconds of a video. Who here says, I can imagine myself in one of those ships trying to go abroad, making it happen? If you're here at Thunderbird, that's kind of why you're here and what you're going to do. So I like that, like you said, metaphorically speaking, I like that metaphor. And so let's go to a strategy action map, because I'm going to give you all the cool frameworks that are really helpful and then tell you that, well, that's great thinking, but it doesn't always work. So we want global growth. We're going to, of course, check out those Pesty analyses, as Nancy said, political, economic. But I'm also going to be working in a particular industry, so I have to know the industry dynamics, and then I have to create a global strategy. So these are all the external analyses we want to do. Make sense? Then we have to look internally and say, wow, if I want to capitalize on these opportunities, to Adrian's point, I got to execute somehow. So I'm going to make a series of recommendations, and maybe Justin's right. I may recommend a no-go decision. But if I recommend a go decision, how do I give myself a chance to really succeed? Because at the end of the day, you are going to be judged on how well you've generated business impact, market impact, or in Aaron's case, societal impact. Make sense? So, we've set the context so far. Any comments, questions? Because we're going to dig in further now. How do companies actually start to make these decisions to go abroad or maybe not? Comments, questions, observations, complaints? No complaints. I don't like complaints. Okay, let's go here then. So, the conventional wisdom. I'm fortunate enough to deal with dozens and dozens of global companies, some senior execs, managers, those that are sort of in charge of global business development. And if you ask managers who are responsible for global business development the following question, hey, how do you determine your company's potential for overseas success? What do you think they say? What's the most common responses you're going to hear? Well, it's unlimited. That's a little ambitious. You must hang out with Jerry over there. That's pretty good. Okay, come on. It's attractive, yes. But what will make it attractive? Help me with a name. Help me with a name. Yeah, GDP growth. All those pesty trends that we talked about. So they're going to talk about a litany or a list of factors that are external to the organization. Favorable country-specific trends, favorable industry-specific trends, rising GDP to the earlier point, growing middle class, we've all heard these, increasing incomes, strong demand for higher quality goods. These pesty trends, which you gotta know, and you're gonna know them, and you'll know this framework well, are what I like to call the usual suspects in any typical pre-entry launch plan. You got to do it. And this is where managers love to focus. Look at that opportunity. I can't say no. Maybe they should. So post-launch, They went ahead, they entered market X with product Y. Post-launch, you ask these managers, so, did you meet your business performance objectives? And what do you think the answer is? It depends. Yeah. Make sure you say that to the CEO and your shareholder. It depends. Yeah, I'll come back next year. We'll figure it out better. Doesn't work that way, boys and girls, guys and gals, friends, colleagues, etc. It's a little tougher than that. And what we hear more often than not, when asked this question post-launch, most will answer, well, not quite. It depends, same idea. Or not at all, meaning they fail. And they have to pull back from the international arena at great cost. These are costly mistakes. Costly mistakes. Then you ask them, why was this overseas, you sort of do an autopsy. Why was this overseas venture not so successful? And what do you think they point to? What's that? A lack of research. So maybe we didn't do our homework well enough. Yeah, that's nice. I promise you, when you get out in the real world, you're not going to be pointing inwards when it comes to trying to identify what is the reason why we failed. Gosh, we were a stupid company. We didn't do research. We made bad decisions. You shouldn't have hired me. No, I don't think that's what you're going to say, because what most managers end up pointing to are externalities again. The market conditions shifted. We had it right, but it moved too quickly. Unexpected channel complexity. Gosh, we didn't really know what we were getting into, and we thought we had it right, etc. And then those aggressive competitors. You notice how it's really never pointed inward? I like to say the root cause, overseas lack of success, is often closer to home. Okay? Yes, Sonny?
That's exactly right.
Well, thank you.
Over in China just got chased out of China because they tried to subsidize, tried to gain market share by subsidizing their product, which is something that they were laughed at by their Chinese competitor for doing that, and that's so it's a real world example.
There's so many lack of success stories. I don't want to call them failures, but there's so many stories that we can do autopsies on, etc. and so on. It's tough to do good, and you're going to attract competitors, and you may not know the market well enough, so maybe you don't do your homework or your market research, etc. So let's see if we can find a plan to really put some discipline and rigor and insight, shine a spotlight internally, and see if we can do it in a way that's non-threatening and reveals where some traps and gaps are within the company. So here's a quick quiz. What percentage of new product launches fail? In other words, I'll give you a definition. The percent of new products introduced to the marketplace, in other words, they're commercialized, that just don't meet their commercial or business objectives. Who here would say it's above 90%? Show of hands. Okay, good. Who here would say it's between 70 and 90? Look around the room. That's where you get the largest bump. Between 50 and 70? Between 20 and 50? Under 20. So who's right? All of you. Meaning the research, and again, it's sort of like popular myth. I don't know how it got to the point where, 95% of new products fail or 80% fail. Well, it really depends on who you're listening to. If you look at these folks from Marketing Week, 3 out of every 4 new product introductions fail. But if you go to this data here, 1 out of every 2 is a success once it launches. That's 50%. I like this data here. If you look at bottom performers, middle performers, and top performers, you've got ones that are commercial successes, commercial failures, or they were killed. It's between 45 and 62% that are actually successful. So the right answer is, we don't know. Yet this remains a very, very popular topic for companies, for articles, for sort of thought leadership. How do we increase the rate of success? Why most product launches fail from Harvard Business Review. Forbes magazine talks about reducing the failure rate. These folks here come up with 85%. I don't know how, but why do 85% of new CPG products crash and burn? Then Nielsen comes up with, hey, you want new product success? Listen to your customers. Isn't that really An interesting idea. That's novel, isn't it? And, well, that's okay. They do great work, by the way, but that's the title of this report. And is it a bad thing that 80% of new products fail, et cetera? So everyone wants to sort of chime in, but everyone tends to talk about either the offering or the opportunity, but not the organization. So, success or failure. Any way you look at it, I don't care what the data tells you, and we're really not sure what the data says, the new product failure rate is out of the acceptable range of most business metrics. So we're not good at what we do, and gosh, we can do better. And you want to know something? Most of the figures I see, I can't find data on global lack of success. This is just, mostly within a particular domestic market. These figures do not take into account the complexities of the global arena. Do you think that would increase the chances of success or decrease? Yeah, I would think so too, but again, I just can't find anything that I can really latch onto. But the key point is, this is a business metric where we're too sloppy. We can do better. So, Pesty indicators, wouldn't you agree that understanding the political environment, economic, social, technical, these are important stuff, but they only set the stage for an opportunity, and they may not be the most important factor we need to consider. Now, as Thunderbirds, we naturally recognize the need for language skills. That's what we do better than anyone. Cultural skills, we do better than anyone. And we focus on global. But even Thunderbirds can overlook some what I like to consider some less obvious requirements. And then, sadly, we all learn a little too late that we're ill-prepared for what waits for us or what is out there abroad. We're not ready for it, and we crash and burn. All right? So now I'm sort of leading to the research and what's the sort of new thinking, the new tool, et cetera, that we've developed. Comments, questions thus far? Doing good? So here we go. Does your company have what it takes to go global? It was published this past April in Harvard Business Review, and I'm fortunate to have three really solid co-authors. Doug Quackenbos, who's a global business leader. He's never worked in academics. He is strictly a practitioner. I like working with practitioners. Marty Roth is the dean at the School of Business at the University of Hartford, and a really well-known academic, super smart guy. And Sig-Young Ah, has anyone had Professor Ah? Yes, he's here at Thunderbird, a great guy. And so, like I like to say, I'm fortunate to have great colleagues, but we've introduced this new tool which we call the 7 Twos of international expansion. So like I said, I'm fortunate to have great colleagues, and I'll give you more detail about the tool, et cetera, and so you don't need to copy it all down. You'll have access to it via some links. But I'm fortunate to have great colleagues. And among the four of us, sad to say, we've got many, many, many plus decades of working with literally 100 plus companies. And in case after case after case after case, we hear the same thing. We see the same thing. These companies and these managers, because Adrian is really eager to grow, right, Adrian? We jump into the international arena before ensuring that all the right internal pieces are in place. So what I mean by that is it is really an attractive opportunity, but are we poised, aligned, and really committed to making it a go in the international arena? So what we set out to do in this research was to discover, reveal, uncover what we like to call the hidden barriers and traps and gaps to international success that haven't really been fully explored. So, what was our ultimate goal in this research? This is where it gets a little spooky. Hope nobody gets motion sickness. Fundamentally, our goal is to help companies avoid the international market expansion graveyard. That's it. How can we do better? And at Thunderbird, that's what we should be doing better. So, we introduced a new assessment tool. What we did was assess, as we hear from these multiple, dozen, 100 plus companies over time, what are the things that if we really unbundle and sort of peel the onion away, what are some of the things that are causing them more problems, and they tend to focus externally but don't look so well focus internally. The first is, what is our attitude? So let's measure it. There's the first tude, by the way. A priority a company or division places on global expansion. Some companies are rather aggressive, have a strong appetite there. Others do it, but they're not maybe fully committed. Second, aptitude. They have the right experiential resources to make it a go. So if I look around the room here, when you get your ticket punch from Thunderbird, you will be part of those right experiential resources because everyone here has a global emphasis and a global mindset. Then we have magnitude, the ability to align the scale and the scope of the opportunity with what we're looking to do and what are our growth goals. So how are things lining up in that regard? Then we have latitude, the willingness to adapt company policies and practices to the opportunity, in other words, relative to corporate compliance. Here with rectitude, legal and ethical practices. This is the one I was referred to. Legal and ethical practices that allow for market success and yet they don't violate our business ethics and so on. Exactitude, a corporate culture that kind of tolerates ambiguity. You're not going to, if you're going to some emerging markets, I think that was Gloria's comment earlier, go to some emerging markets, the market research is going to be not so available. It's not going to be very accurate. It may not be timely, it may not be relevant. So the question is, are we willing to take a leap, even if we don't have exact numbers, etc.? And then finally, fortitude. How committed is the company, is the senior executives committed to global initiatives in general, even in the face of setbacks? Sound good? These all make sense. They all end in two. That was kind of fun, etc. So, our research. Let's talk about it. We surveyed 301 global executives, global managers. And these global managers were in companies that were very active in the global marketplace. And these respondents had two things in common. They had extensive international experience. That's a lot of experience there. And they had knowledge and direct experience with a recent international venture, meaning they were either part of the team or they were observing a team go abroad, etc. So they knew what was going on within the company. Survey tool assessed the level of achievement on each of those 7 tudes for these ventures. Let's keep going. Pretty simple. Again, this is not a complicated study, and the results, I think, are pretty revealing. We divided the respondents into 2 groups, and of course, we pre-screened for this. The first group, those whose overseas initiative was indeed successful. We had 157 managers in this group. And what we mean by successful, they had business objectives they needed to achieve, either for sales, profit, market share, and they achieved those objectives, okay? Then we had overseas objectives that were not successful. Here we had 144, and fundamentally, it was seen as not a success. It failed to meet the company's performance objectives. We ensured timeliness. We said we want to make sure, sufficient timeliness. We wanted to make sure that if you introduce something last week, it's early days, there's no way you'll tell whether it was success or not. So it had to be at least 2 years old, but no longer than 36 months when we fielded the research. So it was pretty recent, where you could get a flavor or sense of, yep, we pulled the plug, it wasn't successful, or hey, this is seen as meeting our objectives. And yet it wasn't 8 years ago, 10 years ago, where, yeah, I think we were successful there. I don't know what's going on in that area. So it was a pretty recent event, and it had timeliness. So, who were the study participants? We were very fortunate to have good funding for this to assess and dig in and capture a very interesting subject pool. They spanned a broad range of industries, and these are managers and execs from all these companies or all these industries. And as you see, almost a quarter had 25,000 employees or more worldwide, 14% at 10,000. None had fewer than 100. So we wanted to make sure that there were sufficient resources to make it a go. And if you look at the roles, responsibilities, and titles, we were pretty impressed. They range from manager, senior manager, to those in the C-suite, the corporate suite. 38% were at the vice president level or above. So these are really seasoned executives, And getting access to them was, again, a great benefit to us. And if you see, they just weren't marketing executives either. They spanned every business function. Remember the key litmus test. Are you aware of or have you participated in an overseas initiative? And as a result, we get these. So let's go here. Let's go look at the expansion tool. Who here wants to test their eyesight? Okay, let's go. Now, you're going to see a much friendlier version of this in a moment. But here's the point. How many TUDs are there, guys? 7. We have 4 subdimensions for each of the TUDs. So how many questions total? 28. That's not so hard. Like I said, I like simple tools, and this is a pretty simple one. And you're all going to get access to the tool. I'll give you the link, etc. You can choose to just review it, go through it, etc. It takes about 10 or 12 minutes to complete. That, to me, is what I like to call a quick and dirty measure. But the question is, what's the value it generates once we see the results? And I'll show you that in a moment. So, for instance, let's take latitude. Is your company willing to adapt to the new ways of doing business? The company is prepared to change our credit policies to meet the requirements of the market. And then it's either 1, which means not at all, or 5, which means what? You strongly agree, right? It's not a hard measure. And to go through these 28, it's pretty dead simple. Make sense? There's the other 3 TUDs with the 4 subdimensions. And this has all been tested for validity, reliability, etc. Okay, so this is the, a written version of the tool. It was all done online. So we have a website called 7tudes.com, pretty original, although not really, but it was available, so we snatched it. And my colleagues and myself, and when it says take the survey, and you can learn more about the tool, etc., I'll show you towards the end of our presentation tonight what the survey results look like and what they reveal. I'll come back to that slide in a moment. Comments, questions before I go on to the findings? Whoops. This screen up here is out. That is okay. Whoops. Okay. Okay. Good enough. Yes.
Yes, I have a question. This was
Let me see a show of hand. I hear it, but I don't see it. Ah, there we go.
so.
You were the IBM guy before, right?
No, now I am in the different startup guy now.
All right, you're a startup guy. That's right. All right, IBM was a startup, right? They all were. Go ahead.
I hope the company I'm talking becomes IBM. So.
Be careful for what you wish for.
Okay, so we are all talking about all the different executive you interviewed and a lot of stuff, but there's some startup and they have patented technology and they're trying to get into the market. There is a demand too, and then once you showcase in some of the startup, innovation center, everything, you will venture capitalists. They come on you and they say, okay, now we are going to guide your business. You exactly don't know, because the guys, those who are the heart of the system, are the PhD research guys. Sorry, Vishal.
Yeah, Vishal.
And so this was more kind of a big organization. How a small organization or a startup adhere to that when the market is outside their home country?
That's a great question, Vishal, and thanks for asking it. So in other words, if you look at our database, and again, we couldn't pick and choose so much. We had 2 requirements. They had international experience, and they knew about whether a venture was successful or not. When we saw the data, we were really darn happy, because the bigger the company means they weren't short of resources if they chose to do it, et cetera. But what Vishal is asking is a great question. What if I don't work for a company that has 10,000 employees? Maybe I've got a staff of 12. The idea is, and so wait till you see the results, and I promise you, Vishal, you'll see all the 7 TUDs, how important they are to make sure the venture is successful. And even if you have 12 employees, there's going to be ways that you can go about instituting or initiating those sorts of skill sets or competencies to make sure even your small company grows right and has the right resources in place, all right? So I think there's a lesson here regardless. If I said to you that everyone in our sample was in a company of 20 or less, I think the results would not have been published where they were. And so I think there's some lessons here from larger companies, but they just don't apply to larger companies. It would apply to startups as well. That's a great question. Anyone else? All right, let's go to the study findings. So as we say, what we found was that the 7 TUDES separate winners and losers. Who are the winners again? See if you're paying attention. Yeah, companies that met their performance targets overseas. And the losers were? They failed. They didn't do it, etc. So, do you remember the 7 TUDES? What's the first one? Excellent. Second one? Third? Well done. There we go. Okay. And again, you can read the quick definitions there. They're not hard. And it's, again, where's the spotlight? Is this, any of this external? No, it's all internal. And remember, what was our response measure? What percent from a 1 to 5 scale, those that either agreed, meaning a 4, or strongly agreed with each statement. So do you think there's a difference between when it comes to fortitude, winners and losers? You bet there is. Those that either agree or strongly agree, we see data here separating those two. Those are wickedly strong results. Keep going. Keep going. Keep going. Keep going. When we saw these results for the first time, we knew there would be an effect there. We did not expect the magnitude of the effect that we see here. These are absolutely separating winners and losers across the board. Make sense? Any questions on this? Is this hard to understand? Show of hands. Hard? Who says this is difficult? I don't get it. This is rocket science. Or who says this is pretty darn simple and pretty straightforward? Yes? I think so. And that's why managers like it. Like I said, simple tools get used. So, let's talk more. If you have an average 7 TUDES, remember, those are individual measures across those 7 dimensions. What if we collapse and aggregate? If you have a 7 TUDES score above 3.89 overall, look at that difference there, winners and losers. Who here would like to be in the 92% category? Hello? Who here wants to say, if it's an 8%, that's a crash and burn, almost certainly straight out of the gate. So if we have a score above 3.89, what's the decision we make, Justin? Let's do it. Full steam ahead. Well done. How about if we don't have a score that's exactly above 3.89, but it's in a 3.52, which isn't a super high score, to 3.88? What do we get? Still separation of winners and losers. And what is the decision here, Justin? Let's do a Pesty. Okay, fair enough. Or let's proceed with caution. And I'm going to give you a few more sort of tips of the trade of how you manage this scenario. Of course, some companies will get a little worse. So we see here 3.15 to 3.51. And what do we see here? Winners and losers. It actually flips. What's the decision here? Danger zone. Bzz, 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 bzz. And then, of course, we have the 92% losers if you have a score below 3.14. And the decision here is shelve this project. Do not pursue. So do you see how, like I said earlier, we're trying to inform decisions? And here's 4 key categories. Full steam ahead, proceed with caution, maybe danger zone, but we might be able to do it. Or 4th, hey, this is an absolute no-go. I don't care how much that Pesty analysis says we got good things happening. And as you see here, this is like I say, a wickedly strong result. Yes, comment, question.
I have a question.
Yes,
so,
is it
Amira.
Amira, yes.
Yeah. So why do companies who are the losers try and go globally if they're not willing to make any changes?
Amira asks a great question, and I'm not suggesting they're not willing to make changes, and I'm going to show you what you do with the data, because every one of you could do an internal assessment. But more importantly, Amira, what we found is, and your question's an excellent one, within the same company, there's going to be different teams with different levels of success. So you could take an IBM or a McDonald's or Uber. Some places they rock it, don't they, Sonny? And some places they crash and burn. It's tough to be successful. I work with a range of companies. They're rock stars in China and Brazil. They can't get it right. So it's different teams that are managing that. So you're going to find different levels of success, not so much among a company, but you're going to find it within sort of the 7 or 8 people that are responsible for that overseas effort. So some are winners, some are losers, but more importantly, how do we get more into the winning category? Make sense? Okay, good question. Anything else? Yes, in the back, sir. Yes.
So as a tool to guide decision making, how would you have you done an analysis of what would happen prior to the launch?
Yeah.
You tend to be more optimistic.
Yeah. Your name is? Josh, and I'll repeat the question for those that might be elsewhere. Josh's question's a good one. Everything we did was sort of post hoc, as we like to say, or retroactively. And what that means is, was it successful or not? Now tell me about it. Versus, hey, let's make some changes and see if we can increase success. I'm going to give you some action steps to take. And we've done this with companies as well to sort of bolster their skill sets. And some of these they're not hard, but they're not obvious. And so what we do is reveal these hidden traps and gaps, and I'll show you that in a moment. And question is, would they have not been successful had they succeeded? We can never prove that. You know what I'm saying? So it's a tough one. But I think the data are so strong that there's something there that they can do to bolster or boost their chances of success. Well done. Good question. Any other question, comment?
Over here. So did you weight all the 7 dimensions equally?
Yes. Yep. That's a good question. Justin's asking, if they're weighted equally, should they be weighted equally? I think on a case-by-case basis. In other words, this is aggregate pooled over 301 companies, 301 initiatives. If we look at individual initiatives, would it be the case that magnitude really matters? Of course, we're a $400 billion company, and we need to make sure it's not a tiny opportunity, but one that's really a strong one, et cetera. Absolutely. And this can all be done on a case-by-case basis. You're looking at the aggregate results. Well done, Justin. I like that. Yes, in the back. Aaron? No. No. Because remember, now we did talk about meeting your business objectives of market share, profit, or sales. So it was mostly in the commercial sphere. But again, in like response to Vishal's comment, which was a good one, I think there's lessons here for even NGOs. How do I get my internal house in order to make sure when I do decide to sort of generate an initiative overseas, that I'm going to increase. I'm not going to say you're going to make it 100% of the time, but how can I boost my chances of success? Okay? Other comments, questions? So, taking action, and this is, help me again, the gentleman about post hoc, your name again is? My name is Josh. Josh's question. I like this. How do we sort of take action to sort of close the gaps or avoid the traps? And, well, that's the point. If we do a pre-analysis, you're right, these are success, this is all post hoc, this is all after the fact. But if we do an analysis first, before we go abroad, and we notice there's a gap there, what might we do? There's sort of some quick wins, meaning what can maybe hire the right resources, et cetera, or maybe we have to change the culture, which is a much longer term endeavor. So as we see here, here's a range of activities for closing the gaps. Can we read that in the back? Yes or no? And this screen decided to go out on me because my eyesight's not good either. Help me with technology here. What's that? I can't hear you. Come again? No, the screen here. Can't hear you. Come on up, Vishal. If you're going to ask me questions, I'm going to have to ask them in return. Help me out, dude. And we're almost done, guys. I don't know what that noise is, but... Well, there we go. I want to see this. No? Dude. Well done. Okay. Good. We're good. We're good. Thanks. You're dismissed. All right, so what does fortitude mean? Can you read that, guys? Nothing oh, yeah, now up here. What is fortitude? Company has a commitment. And you see it's a strong separation there. So clear, strong communication that our corporate initiatives overseas are important. Another thing to do is if it fails, don't engage in public punishment of those that were involved in the initiative. No one likes to be associated with a failure, but maybe it was because we weren't fully committed. Then comes exactitude. Technology is wonderful when it works. Consider strategic objectives versus just your financial ones. So in other words, this may not be a money winner for us, but if we want to block a competitor or cause them to pour resources into this arena so I can compete with them more strategically elsewhere, that's something to consider as well. All right? So it's not always going to line up where the financials make sense. Then a third consideration with rectitude. What are the current practices in the country? Make sure you benchmark those and clarify what we might call deal breakers from the outset. I've got to have corporate compliance. If this is going to violate corporate, this country is just a no-go. I don't care how attractive the opportunity might be. Then comes latitude. Educate headquarters on the target market standards. Train and sensitize stakeholders. So there's a wide range of opportunities here, and we have to broaden it from our normal corporate objectives at home. Magnitude. Make sure all stakeholders, everyone in the company understands the magnitude of the objective in international markets. Pilot studies are essential. So I can succeed here or even fail, and if there's learning involved, I don't mind falling flat or falling short. Then we have aptitude, and this is what all you folks are doing here is the notion of do we have the right experiential resources, and I like to say training, 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 and PowerPoint didn't like that because it kept saying, you know, a repeated word, you want this? I say yes, yes, yes. So every time you go through spell check, it's not so happy with that result. And then finally, attitude, where senior leaders are present and they talk about global initiatives and they're committed to it and it shows that alignment. So these are just for, Josh, some action steps you can take, but I'm going to get to a little bit more detail as to how an individual company can assess their own tudes, if you will, and then come up with some action steps. These are just a range of ones that we've used with companies and so on, depending on where they're doing strong or keep up the good work or they need to bolster some skill sets. So let's go back here and we'll get to endgame. Key takeaways. I like to say you got a new tool now. So you're a business person, whether it be in the NGO space, you still have to wear a suit sometimes, Aaron, I'm sorry, all right? Or you're in the corporate world where maybe a suit would be necessary. Companies can now identify in a systematic manner, and I mean systematic in that it's a quick measure as well, their internal shortcomings that will hinder overseas success both individually, how do I perform on each of those 7 tudes, and to Justin's point, not all of them will be equally important to me or to my business goals. And then collectively, when I aggregate across, and has the potential to derail an otherwise attractive overseas opportunity before it has a chance to leave the station. Meaning it's a great opportunity, and gosh, we were never going to succeed here because we didn't have the right internal pieces lining up. So, global growth. Harvard Business Review was a surprise to us. They created a video for us. So you can find this on our website and we'll play it. It's just 2.5 minutes long and it sort of summarizes the results in a nice visual way. Guess we need sound now. I didn't do anything. Okay, help me out. Now, why do we have no sound? We got plenty of sound over there. Somebody, where's the gentleman from up there that was a hero before? I played this earlier, guys, and trust me, it worked. What's that?
Different industries were asked about their company.
Oh, what do you know?
If your company is trying to go global, you have to look at more than just the external conditions of the new markets. Research shows that the abilities of a company that usually make or break these international endeavors. First is attitude. Winning firms prioritize global business expansion. Aptitude is the degree to which a company has the right knowledge and staff and hiring externally for skills you need. The highest scoring capability across all companies was magnitude, a company's ability to align the scale and scope of overseas opportunities with its goals and capabilities. This involves being realistic about the geographic footprint of any initiative. Latitude is how a firm adapts its marketing policies and practices to international opportunities. Staff and stakeholders must be trained in cross-cultural differences. Fewer companies excel at rectitude. This refers to the flexibility of a business's legal and ethical practices. They must be flexible enough to work in a new market with new competitors while maintaining corporate compliance. Leaders of winning firms do so by encouraging open discussion of issues and clarifying objectives and deal breakers before entry. Exactitude is the ability to function in unknown conditions. The corporate culture must be able to tolerate some level of financial ambiguity and market uncertainty. Clearly and consistently,
Josh, you asked the right question. So what do I do about it now that I know these are sort of differences that make a difference? And if I'm going to try to capitalize and generate global growth, because going back to the beginning, we're talking about business strategy, the imperative to grow, how do I increase my chances of success? And what you saw there is, and I'm going to give you sort of some 3 action steps and then we're done. What you saw there is the idea of seeing where the differences lie between winners and losers, assessing your own capabilities, and then seeing what we might do about it. So, how do you become, really what Josh was asking is, how do we become a global winner? How do I ensure that or boost the chances of success? Well, companies that we found that have leveraged the tool have done the following. All stakeholders, now I'm not talking to your point, is it Ariana? I'm sorry. Amira, that's unusual. If I see it and I repeat it for like 12 weeks, I'll probably get it right. That's a full semester, et cetera. But Amira's point's a good one. You know, why would companies do it? You want to assess the stakeholders on the team. So usually it's between 4, 5, maybe 8 folks at most are part of a global initiative where they're responsible. Include senior business leaders and line managers who are, responsible for execution, and engage all the stakeholders in a disciplined discussion. So think about it, Josh. The tool is cool, it separates, but when you have a thought starter that puts a bit of discipline around some key areas, and you can start to generate, hey, we're pretty low here, why do you think that is, et cetera. You can begin to generate what I call an informed discussion to figure out how you get those internal resources lined up. A second step, see if everyone agrees. Some folks may say, gosh, I think we're really strong in this area and I'm the lone wolf. In saying that, and my other 5 team members say, this is a key weakness of ours, we're just not doing well here, et cetera. So the nice thing is, central questions, is there internal agreement as to how the company is committed, how it's poised, how it's aligned to capitalize on this international opportunity, and an open forum where we've run, it's facilitated, where you get 5 to 7 people, and it's a really engaging, informed discussion. And the real value is not so much in the results. The real value, Josh, is in the discussion that ensues from it. And then finally, consider your overall TOOD score. And as we talked earlier, well, there's 4 key categories. Full steam ahead, proceed with caution, danger zone, and shelve that puppy. Okay. So with that, sum it up. What we've introduced to the call it the global business community, is a quick and dirty tool. It doesn't take long to complete, and as I say, it's the action steps that are generated from it that allow a company to probably make the difference between success, or maybe even greater success, and market failure. They're very, very costly mistakes when you fail in the international arena, even the domestic arena. So, as we say, the success of scores on individual TOODs and the 4 overall decisions really provide a bit of spotlight on those internal capabilities. I mentioned earlier that you all can take the survey and you get a free report. It will present a visual for you as to where your company, or more importantly, Amira, see I got it right, your team, because even within the same company, different teams will have different levels or magnitude of the TOODs. And you provide us with your email, we provide you with a free report in return, and you get to see where you're strong, where you're weak, where you need to improve, and like I say, maybe sometimes keep up the good work. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions, comments, and I want to say thanks for your time. I know it's a busy week for you all. It is Tuesday, though. If it was Thursday, we'd probably get, because it's pub night Thursday, too. I'm not sure I could compete with the pub, but on Tuesday, that's not so bad. Well done. Okay, and you didn't give me your name earlier, sir.
Ignacio.
Ignacio.
In the findings, you see any difference between public and private companies?
That's a great question. We did try to make cuts in the data along those lines, and every way we cut the data, there was no difference. That's why when I say to Aaron back here that I think there's some lessons for NGOs, and like I said to Vishal, for even small companies, it's like no matter how we cut the data fundamental, no matter how we cut the companies by their, what we call corporate demographics, if you will, the data are fundamentally unchanged.
And follow up that one. And do you find, or is any other any company you can give an example that fall in this to be successful?
Well, I could, but then I'd be violating a confidentiality agreement. So, Ignacio, and this is being taped and broadcast around the world. I'm going to... Yeah, that's exactly right. Good, well done. I like that. So, we need a little... In fact, you haven't taken the oath yet, have you? Ah, there we go. Well done. Now, I like... if you're going to make a commitment to a company, et cetera, then you've got to sort of honor that. But the point is, again, it's not hard stuff. And it's that discussion that's really the key. Another comment, question.
Yeah, Prof, my question is around the public punishment. So I just want to quote an example. Walmart was trying to invest in India, and since Indian government has certain restrictions in terms of foreign direct investment in retail sector, and the wholesale market was open, they wanted to enter the market, and they bribed some of the senior executives in the government. And as a result of that, Walmart formed a committee internally, and they fired 3 top executives, including the CFO and the CEO. So what's your take on that? So do you think that if they want to go back to that market and try and get into wholesale or retail, will they be able to survive?
Well, some corporate environments are not very forgiving. It's either because they're publicly traded and you've got shareholders breathing down your neck, or it's simply we demand high levels of performance. So I guess maybe the cautionary tale here is, yes, some will, and again, it's Walmart failed miserably in India. The papers, in other words, the popular business press made hay out of it as well, which doesn't help the folks internally. Don't worry, but the press is saying, we still love you. You're fired, right? I'm sorry. Sometimes that's the way it works as well. But I think the ideal here, and maybe the takeaway is, as you get to pick and choose companies you want to work for, maybe you want to find an environment that's going to give you a little more flexibility or a little more latitude to, innovate, try to grow. For instance, I've never done work directly with Google, but I work with some people that are part of their creative labs. You know what the mantra is at Google? It shows you what Deep Pockets can do, or Alphabet now. Fail regularly. Imagine that. I work with some companies that you even border outside. Don't screw it up is what they say. We got a good thing going, not fail regularly. So it really depends on the corporate culture, and you got to decide what you're comfortable with then. And maybe, hopefully, you have a choice between two companies that maybe one is more forgiving in that regard. I think we have time for one or two more questions. I think there's one back here. We'll get to you. Yes? Your what? Oh, Josh.
Yeah, I was going to ask if you had any data that showed results of companies actually who have used the tool and how well they performed after use of the tool.
Well, you remember, it was just published recently,
Okay.
April 2016. We've been doing work with the company, because again, there's a lag between when you submit and when you publish, et cetera. But HBR publishes things very quickly, unlike academic journals. So we submitted this, I don't know, maybe December, and it shows up in April. It's still early days. And you work with, and by the way, as a consultant, we get ignored all the time. We give them recommendations, and that's great. We get, hey, thanks. They pay you. It's nice. It's good to have a revenue stream. And then they go ahead and ignore it. Some of it is corporate culture. Some of it is, I can't believe you're even moderately successful in your business sometimes. But it's hard to make good decisions, Josh. That's the bottom line. We're trying to give you a way to just, do it a little bit better. One final question. Yes?
Yes. Do you have any breakdown as to geographic locations? Like you say, some do really successful in one part of the world, and the other part they flop. Was any of that broken down, or?
That's right. Yeah, we do. And that's another good question. No matter how we cut the data, the results are fundamentally the same. So remember now, we had some companies where the corporate headquarters, you had to ask, where's your corporate headquarters? And then where was the overseas initiative you're referring to? So it looks like a crazy quilt, because you have some in Asia that are going to South America, some in Europe that are going to the US. So, and no matter how we cut the data, we only have 301, so when you start to make fine distinctions, you lose a bit of power. But the results are fundamentally the same. That's the good news. So it doesn't matter where you're from or what you do, whether you're an NGO or a large company or a small company, I think there's a lesson and some value here for pretty much everyone, and that's why, again, HBR is, was willing to publish it, so on and so forth. Cool. I think we're getting close to closing time. Is there one more question? A burning question. Okay, I'm good if you're good, and I hope to see some of you guys, gals, in class, etc. It's been a pleasure. I know this is a big week for many of you, and for some of you, a nice break from the workday, etc. So welcome everyone, and I hope it's been informative. Tweak your thinking a bit, and may all your international ventures be successful. Thank you.